Hey guys, and thank you for joining me on this week's episode of Salad and Fries. I'm your host, Cintron. Don't forget, you can catch up on all the latest happenings with Salad and Fries by visiting our website at www.salad-in-fries.com. On our website, you'll be able to connect with us on Facebook and Instagram, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel. On our YouTube channel, you'll be able to watch all of our previous episodes, as well as watch the first episode in our This Is Me interview series. Our first episode of our This Is Me interview series was with Quashawn Hayes, so make sure you're following up by watching that episode and following him on Instagram. This week, guys, we're going to focus on a few areas that are a little difficult to talk about, but I think it's needed. So this week, due to everyone being home as much as they are, I'm sure people are starting to experience a little slowdown in, I want to say, their mental well-being. So this week, I figure it's best to go ahead and tackle the subject of depression, or maybe having a few mental slowdowns or areas of darkness or moments of I need to figure out what is going on. We all have been through it. I've spoken about the transitions in my life, and one of the major transitions occurred with me back in 2010, 2011. I was unemployed for a while, but in my head I was like, well, I'm fairly knowledgeable, so I'll be able to acquire an opportunity or a career with no issues. I was also turning 30 around the same time. So that major milestone in life, as well as the unemployment, all hitting me at one time, began to push me into an unhealthy area of feeling that I needed to be alone. I don't want to Let's just call it depression. It was depression. It was a moment in which I did not want to be around anyone. I wanted to be to myself. However, I found an opportunity to focus on my event planning. Event planning was the thing that I enjoyed doing the most. And during that time, while I was unemployed, I was able to focus more on my event planning skills. I enjoyed doing event planning. Event planning was going to be the next career change for me. It was the area in which I found solitude, to say. I was able to utilize my creative as well as my analytical sides to collide together to create some amazing events and experiences for those who I worked with. One in particular, I was able to do a wedding. I'll say that was around 2010. I was very excited because at that time, when you're not working, you sit and you tend to question your worth, or you tend to question your skills, or you tend to question what is it that you are contributing to your life, as well as what you may be contributing to others. This opportunity to create a wonderful, peaceful, how can I say this, a union for a couple meant a lot to me, because for me, it said, okay, your creative is excited because it hasn't been challenged in a while. The analytical was great because it was, there's an opportunity to write contracts, there's an opportunity to review contracts, there's an opportunity to write out event plans. It was just exciting for me holistically. It placed me in a good spot. I said, you know what? The event planning is taking off. This is where I am supposed to be. However, during the planning process, a few things went awry, which is always common. I was dealing with the lack or limited income that was coming in from the unemployment insurance, as well as the ever amounting stacks of bills with the mortgage and the car payment and credit cards, and trying to stay afloat. That, along with the planning, started to, I want to say, make me unravel a little. And I did a very good job during that time of, I don't want to say hiding, but masking what was going on the inside. I immersed myself in the event planning. The event planning was my opportunity to check out or log out of what was going on in my universe at that time. It was my opportunity to sit and not even think about what was going on at home. So I focused on the event. As we got closer and closer to the event, things were needed and things were not getting done as I needed them to get done for financial reasons and just for simple event planning glitches. At the same time, in my head, I was like, I'm an amazing event planner. What is the issue? And I began to question myself when in reality, there was nothing that I was doing per se that was wrong. I was following my event plan. I was following everything that was outlined for me. But for whatever reason, things just were not working out. We get to the wedding. The wedding goes off without a hitch. It's amazing. The reception is great, or at least is what I'm thinking in my mind, that everything is great. And then we got to the end of the night, in which I was looking forward to because I said, okay, the end of my distraction, the planning for the event, today is the day. It's the end of the day. It's time for me to be compensated for my distraction or my time away from my ever amounting bills. And it just didn't transpire that night. It didn't transpire at that time. And so, with already questioning myself and my worth and everything that I had already done for my particular client, the non compensation at that moment for me transpired in my mind to, you'll be okay. You can wait. But it also transpired, or it transferred in my mind to, you're not worthy of being paid at this time. Because for me, when you see other people are being compensated for the things that they were doing, and then you're not compensated, in your mind, you're like, well, what did I do wrong? I outlined everything. We had an agreement. What is the issue? But no one knows 100% of what's going on in your situation. No one knows fully your story unless you tell them. And I did not believe at that time that it was best for me to share with my client what was going on with me in the background. It was not my place, in my opinion, to say, hey, I'm depending on my payments. I'm depending on everything to move in the right direction because I'm a few strands short of completely falling apart. Your event is keeping me afloat. Your event is keeping my mind in a place that keeps me from focusing on what's really going on, the unraveling on the inside. At that point in time, I knew nothing about journaling whatsoever. It was just hold it in, you can get through it, you're a big boy, you can figure this out. So on that night, I felt horrible. I had an amazing event. The wedding was perfect, but not being paid, that pushed me. That was the last thread in my rope. That was the last piece that was holding me together. And that cloud of darkness began to grow. That night, I went home and I cried because the only thing that went through my mind was, I did everything that I was supposed to do. At least I thought I did, but I haven't been compensated. What did I do wrong? And the ever amounting burden or thoughts of, you are bad, you're not worthy, you didn't do this, start to consistently replay in my head. That's the only thing I heard in my head. Had nothing to do with the client whatsoever. The client said, hey, I can't pay you tonight. I'll be able to pay you on this day, on that Tuesday or whatever. But that's not how that transferred in my head. We never know what people are going through, and I lost it that night. I can honestly say that night in 2010, I lost it. All of my threads came unraveled. My rope snapped. and I went home and I cried. And no one could do anything to make me feel whole. I just felt like at that point in time, the universe had told me ultimately, you are not worth it. I had a home in which I prayed hard for and I worked for and I felt like I deserved. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to lose my car. I'm not working. I'm not able to find a job. Like everything for me fell apart that month, that December 2010. I felt like my whole world came undone. So, fast forward 2 days later, I still wasn't compensated. And it was around the time in which I was supposed to get compensated and I wasn't. And I took to social media because at that point, you are in a dark place. You don't care about anyone else's feelings. You don't care about the relationships that you've built. You don't care about anything other than you feeling better. And me feeling better meant trying to make someone else look bad. That was a bad move on both parts. One, for me, for explaining or stating this is what's going on in my life. I wasn't compensated for the work that I've done, and these people are having a wonderful life of their own on their honeymoon. And then for me, it also, I felt bad on their part because I was like, well, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. You didn't uphold your end of the deal. You did not do your part. And no one ever looks at it from both sides. We only look at it from our side, which can be selfish. And for me, when I look back on that situation, I could have handled that way differently. However, technically, I could not have handled it differently because I didn't know any other way to handle it because that was the first time my world had ever completely fallen apart. And I want you to hear me when I say my entire world fell completely apart. My entire world fell completely apart. I felt isolated. I felt like I was alone. I felt like there was no one there for me. I felt like no one understood me. Then after I did the social media post, it seemed like my circle, not my real circle, but we'll just say the circle that I was in at that time, I felt like everyone turned on me. It was, you're wrong for doing X, Y, and Z. And it's like, but did you care to ask me how I'm feeling? Do you care to ask me why I did what I did? No one cared. All everyone saw was me reacting on social media, and no one cared. That made me feel like, can I get any lower? So for the rest of that month, and a lot of people do not know this about me, but for the rest of that month, I literally laid on my floor in my house, in my living room, crying night after night and day after day. Because for me, I felt like I was not worthy of life itself. I felt like at that point, there was nothing for me. I acquired a home that I loved, and I felt like my home was growing to be an area or a space of love, and I felt like everything was being taken away from me. Everything. I felt like everything was being taken away from me. I felt like no one cared at all. Yes, I had my friends and I had my mom and I had my close family that will remind me of their love. But at the same time, you just don't know how, when everything completely falls apart, what that does to a person. So no, we never know what's going on in people's lives, which is always why from that point forward, I always try my best to take a step back before I react or talk to people a certain way, because I'm like, well, I don't know what's going on. So I try to engage or ask questions just to get a little feeling to see what's going on in people's lives. So from that night forward, I prayed. I started praying harder and harder. And it's like that dark place just pushed me into, you need to pray harder, you need to pray more, you need to pray and pray and pray. And I consistently just prayed, and I was like, okay, I'm tired of praying. I need an answer. I need an answer. At this point, I need an answer. And literally, my frat brother called and said, hey, what are you doing? I had just finished crying. But I didn't tell him that. I didn't tell him that at all. It was my line brother, actually. He called and he said, what are you doing? I was like, oh, nothing. Just, watching TV. Lying. I wasn't watching no TV. I was bawling my eyes out on my carpet that at that point looked like me with my face in the floor. So he was like, oh, well, I'm home. And it clicked. It hit me because I was like, when I was right before he called, I said, Lord, I need a sign of what I need to do. And somehow he just called and said, maybe you should come to DC. Come visit me. Come visit us. And I said, maybe I should just move to DC. And I literally said that. I think I said that to him. I think I said, maybe I should just move to DC because there's nothing going on here in Atlanta. I'm not working. Maybe I can come to DC and start a new life. Moved to DC, and I moved to DC, and that's where I was in an environment that pushed me, that made me sit and think about life. I did an interview for a job as an executive assistant. And I ended up just being an admin. So for me, I was like devastated because I was like, I'm an admin. But I worked with the coolest boss ever. We're still friends to this day. His energy was very instrumental in bringing light to my world. He does not know how his energy brought light to my world, but just for the simple fact that he was all over the place, like mentally, he was just all over the place. Because of him being all over the place, it just made me, I laughed. I would go to work and I would be like, this dude is wild, but it would help me. And then I met a young lady who was like, oh, I teach Zumba fitness, you should come to my class. And I was like, girl, get out of my face. Like literally, that's how I felt. But that little quiet mouse invited me to her class. And I went to her class and she was a burst of energy. Like she poured so much love into me. And between going to work in the office and going to her Zumba classes and just being in DC, period, just helped me to come out of my dark place. Like literally in 2-3 months, I began to come out of my dark place. All that weight that was gained was coming off. I was losing weight. And then it hit me. Oh, maybe I should just move back to Atlanta. Why? Why? Why do you want to move back to Atlanta? I was in a good place. But the only thing that I could see was, okay, I'm healed. Let me move back to Atlanta. Like, it's like, run back to the place that hurt you. Run back to the darkness. You finally came out. Maybe I was pushed into that darkness or pushed into that environment, or pressed or squeezed in order for the good juices to start flowing, which was DC. But I wanted to leave to go back to Atlanta. Made no sense. But I went back to Atlanta, but I took some good things with me. I started teaching fitness. I opened a fitness facility. From opening the fitness facility, I was discovered, and I actually went and taught fitness around the world. I've been everywhere. People who know me know I've taught in Australia, I've taught in New Zealand, I've taught in Indonesia, I've taught in the French Polynesian Islands. I've been everywhere. I've met so many people, and I never would have met these people or gone to these places had I not been pressed hard back in 2010. Had my rope not completely broken in 2010, had I not become a broken man, a broken person back in 2010, I would not be the person I am today. The things that transpired in my life transpired for a reason. It was to cultivate and develop me. However, there was a lot of healing that had to take place. The journaling came in later. When you sit down and you start talking about your issues with a professional, they begin to help you see the things that you need to do. You begin to follow those little breadcrumbs that they drop in order for you to have your self-discovery, or as some would say, your aha moment. You tend to pick up little things that will help you to discover where the trauma came from, where the hurt came from. Because me doing event planning was the pride. Like, that was my pride in my life. I love doing event planning. But after that one event, there was such trauma attached to event planning that I stopped doing event planning. And a lot of people ask me, why don't you do event planning anymore? And I always would say, well, I'm just not into it anymore. When really what I wanted to say was, there's so much trauma attached to it. That's why I stopped doing it. However, it was going through my moments of couch time and journaling and talking about my trauma that helped me learn to turn that negative into a positive. I said, no, 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 no. You are worthy. You are a great event planner, regardless of what transpired at that point in time. That had nothing to do with you, but it was needed in order to get you to the place where you are now. I have traveled so many places around the world, and I do business with so many different people, and I realize and recognize that I do have great talents. Regardless of what other people do, that's their business. I have to worry about my business. And what I have learned is I have to be direct, and I have to be very open, and I have to help people understand not to waste my time. Because I am ultimately responsible for my energy in my universe. Never allow people to steal your peace. Never allow people to steal your joy. However, situations come in order to press you to becoming who you're ultimately supposed to be. We all have our own destinies. How we get there is going to be different. We all have different paths to get to our ultimate destiny. Some are easier than others. I have experienced loss multiple times in my life. However, each time I hit a valley in my life, I learned something more about myself. So do I look at when I had to sell my house back in 2010, 2011, do I look at that as a negative? No. That was just the universe saying, hey, you owned a home. You always wanted to own a home. You did. It doesn't mean that you won't ever own one again, but you owned one. However, I will say, if I do own a home again, I don't know if I want one like what I had. Like, I had a very nice home, but I think now I just want, I want to live in like a penthouse or something like that. Like, I don't have to cut no grass. I just come in. I don't know if I want the yard and maybe a rooftop where I can cook out. Either way, focus, focus, focus. But I say all that to say, or I shared this to say, people are going through things, especially right now with everyone being at home and no one really knowing what's going on with their jobs. Take this time for some self-discovery. I've always said on every episode that you should journal as much as you can. Sit and take the time out to write out your feelings. There is no organization to it. And go back maybe a week, maybe 2 days later and review what you wrote, because from there you'll start seeing the magic that's on the inside of you. Start to identify some of those negatives or some of those traumatic things that are going on and try to discover how you can overcome them. It's through my experiences that I can now, if I move into an area that is not per se positive, I recognize the energy and I'm able to make a plan as to what to do, such as with salad and fries. I want to do an episode every week, but I also know that that's not necessarily going to be possible all the time. I became a little unmotivated at one point, but then I recognized where that was coming from, where that energy was coming from, and I took a time to myself. If you have to pull back from something, you make the conscious decision to pull back for yourself. Take a moment, be to yourself, take everything in, and then come back at it hard, letting everybody know I am back large and in charge. I recharged my battery, I have recharged my universe, and now I am back here delivering to you this good energy. So do what you have to do that's best for you. Guys, I thank you so much for being a part of my Salad and Fries community. You just do not know how much you contribute to Salad and Fries. Guys, don't forget, you have to share Salad and Fries with everyone. So make sure you're going to our website at www.salad-in-fries.com, where you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and we're going to ask that you go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So the next thing I want you to know is, guys, you're worth it. You are worth it. And as Quashawn Hayes said on his interview, everything is okay. It's okay. You got this. You, baby doll, you are a winner. And I am here to support you. So guys, if you ever need anything, just reach out to us here at Salad and Fries. Now, I'm not talking about no money, but if you want to talk, have a little chit chat on the side, go to our website. We have a little box where you can submit questions to us and we'll follow back up. We'll answer them, but you can also hit us up on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Stay tuned because next week we're going to have a hot new episode and we'll keep you updated when the next episodes of the This Is Me series will continue with our next interview, as we have several more interviews lined up that you're going to be enjoying. Let me say it that way. So once again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful evening and have a great week. Bye.